The tavern smelled of burnt oil and roasted protein, a scent that clung to the walls like a warning. Shadows stretched across the room as alien patrons nursed their strange, pulsating drinks. No one looked at the human, least of all the humans. Jaren Thorne had been on countless worlds, but Xylar 9's frontier station was different. The moment he stepped inside the tavern, he felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes, some curious, some dangerous, all measuring. He ignored them and slung his pack onto a stool. "You're far from Earth, human," a voice hissed. The speaker's skin shimmered like liquid metal, eyes black as the void. "Do you know what happens to your kind here?" Jaren smiled faintly, a predator's grin wrapped in calm. "Depends. Are you offering tea or trouble?" The alien snorted, a sound like steam escaping a boiler. "Try us." Jaren didn't wait. His hand hovered near his side, but there was no weapon visible. He relied on what Earth had bred into its finest: reflex, instinct, and sheer unpredictability. That alone made the aliens uneasy. The tavern's rhythm changed. Conversations stuttered. Glasses paused mid-air. A heavy-set Jarlik bouncer, forearms folded across his chest, lurched toward Jaren, his mandibles clicking in what might have been a laugh, or a threat. "You shouldn't be here," the bouncer growled. His voice resonated in the low gravity, vibrating through the floorboards. "I'm here for a drink," Jaren replied calmly, "and maybe a story. Stories don't end well for humans here." Jaren raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe it's time one did." The first alien moved. A scaly arm swung at Jaren with deadly precision. Humans were not known for strength, not in the Federation's records, but they were unpredictable. Jaren twisted, letting the blow graze him, and struck the alien's side with a measured punch. The tavern fell silent as the alien went down, wheezing. The sound was the spark. Within seconds, the tavern erupted. Chairs crashed, glasses shattered, and claws tore into metal walls. Jaren was in the middle, human and alone, yet terrifyingly focused. Every movement was a test, every glance a threat deflected. "Why fight?" shouted a voice in the chaos, a young alien with violet fur, eyes wide with fear. "Because if you don't," Jaren yelled over the roar, "you die anyway." The line of logic was alien, yes, but the clarity of it hit hard. He wasn't just defending himself. He was surviving, teaching survival through raw presence, the kind of instinct that had carried humans from ice to stars. Yet somewhere in the back, beyond the fray, a pair of glowing eyes watched silently. They belonged to someone or something important, someone who could alter the course of this skirmish and every human's fate on Xylar 9. The first part of the fight ended with Jaren slamming a table into a towering Vrethian warrior, sending it skidding into the wall. Silence returned, but only for a heartbeat. The tavern was a graveyard of overturned chairs, shattered drinks, and stunned aliens staring at a single unbroken human. "You don't understand what you're doing," hissed the metallic-skinned alien from before, now nursing a bleeding jaw. Jaren leaned against the bar, breathing evenly. "Oh, I understand. I just don't care." In the corner, the glowing eyes flickered, a silent signal passing between two unseen figures. Whatever judgment had been made, whatever decision was taken, the ripple of Jaren's actions would not stay confined to this tavern, not by a long shot. Somewhere deep in the station, a siren began to wail. Not the police, something worse, something systematic. "And the human?" He smiled. "Finally," he muttered, "things are getting interesting." The sirens weren't for the tavern patrons, they were for the entire station. Jaren Thorne could feel the hum of the alarms through the soles of his boots. Every vibration, every shudder of the walls seemed to echo a single truth. He had awakened something far larger than himself. The tavern's doors burst open. He didn't wait. Jaren pivoted, his gaze scanning the chaos. A dozen Vrethian guards streamed in, their segmented armor clinking like a swarm of angry beetles. Behind them, officers of the Lirani, their translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent warnings, raised their energy staves. "Contain him. Human, do not underestimate him." A Vrethian commander barked. Jaren's lips curled into a half-smile. Humans weren't physically superior in most measures, but instinct, adaptability, and sheer audacity, those were weapons no Federation species had fully studied. He ducked under a charging Vrethian, flipping it with a precise sweep of his leg. Metal groaned. Alien claws snapped at empty air. He grabbed a loose metal pipe from the floor and used it like an extension of his arm, knocking two officers into the wall. Each movement was efficient, precise, yet almost balletic in its chaos. The purple-furred alien from before, named Lyra, as Jaren would later learn, stood frozen at the doorway. Her eyes shone with fear and awe. How can one human survive? Jaren finished for her, twisting to dodge Avrethian's snapping mandibles. We've had a long history of surviving the impossible. Somewhere in the background, a communicator shrieked. A voice, deep and resonant, spoke in perfect Galactic common. Attention all Federation units, code Crimson. Human insurgent is active. Engage with extreme caution. Do not underestimate. I repeat, do not underestimate. The words sent a ripple through the ranks. The humans were not just rare, they were a biological anomaly. The Federation's records described them as dangerously unpredictable, but seeing it in action, that fear went deeper than any statistic. Jaren noticed the hesitation. He pressed it. Moving like a shadow, he used the low gravity to his advantage, vaulting over tables, swinging from hanging conduits, and turning every surface into a weapon. Stop him, the commander shouted. He will disrupt the entire station. Lyra's voice trembled. Why? Why isn't he afraid? Fear is predictable, Jaren said without looking at her. Humans make decisions faster than fear can control us. By now, the tavern's battle had spilled into the station's corridors. Airlocks hissed, containment fields glowed, and surveillance drones buzzed overhead. Every alien species present coordinated, yet all their movements were slightly too rigid, slightly too reliant on protocol. Jaren thrived in the cracks, exploiting hesitation, improvising, turning desperation into opportunity. He barreled into a small atrium, scattering a group of Lyrani officers. One of them, a veteran named Selcora, lunged at him with a plasma blade. Jaren sidestepped, grabbed a railing and used it to launch the alien forward into the wall. The air pressure hissed. Selcora groaned, stunned. Behind him, a figure emerged from the shadows, the metallic-skinned alien who had confronted him in the tavern. Their eyes glinted like obsidian in the emergency lighting. You think your tricks will work everywhere? The alien said, voice tight. The Federation does not forget. We will track this act. We will punish. Jaren paused, leaning slightly on a twisted support beam. Punish. Maybe. But maybe you'll learn something first. Maybe you'll see why humans survive when every protocol fails. The alien stiffened, and for a moment it seemed that even centuries of Federation training couldn't mask the flicker of uncertainty. Jaren seized it. A sudden explosion rocked the station. Bulkheads cracked, alarms screamed louder. Something had reacted to the tavern chaos beyond the station's interior. The external defense grid had triggered. In the panic, officers scrambled to containment zones, leaving corridors open. Jaren didn't hesitate. He bolted down the open passage using momentum and instinct to evade capture. Lyra followed at a safe distance, her fur bristling, conflicted between fear, duty, and fascination. As they reached the edge of the station's observation deck, Jaren paused, looking out at the swirling void. A dozen Federation warships had warped into orbit. They were preparing for full-scale lockdown. An entire fleet mobilized because one human had fought back in a bar. Lyra whispered, almost to herself. They're afraid. Jaren's eyes gleamed. Not afraid, he corrected her. Respectful. We're not the kind of species that dies quietly. That terrifies them. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the station, a signal pulsed, a warning sent to the Federation Council itself. One human, one tavern fight had shifted the balance. The question wasn't whether they could catch him, it was whether they would survive the lesson he was about to teach, and Jaren Thorne was just getting started. The void was quiet for the first time in hours, almost eerie in its stillness. The shattered remnants of the asteroid field drifted past Jaren Thorne's shuttle, glittering like cold stars. The Federation fleet lingered beyond sensor range, regrouping, calculating. Every officer aboard every ship had one thought. The humans survived, and now they feared what he might do next. Lyra leaned against the console, still trembling. They can't even predict you anymore. They're afraid. Jaren's eyes scanned the void, calm, unwavering. Not afraid, respectful. Humans don't just survive, they endure, adapt, and fight back. That terrifies them. Fear is a weakness. Respect is something earned. And we've earned it. Suddenly, a pulse flashed across the shuttle's display. The lead cruiser was maneuvering aggressively, attempting a final blockade. Lyra's fur bristled. They're trying to crush us. This is it. Jaren's lips curved into a grin. No, this is where humans change the rules. With a sudden flick of his controls, the shuttle dropped into a narrow gravity well left by a fractured asteroid. Federation sensors faltered, unable to track the shuttle through the swirling debris. Jaren twisted the controls with practiced ease, each movement precise, each calculation instinctive. Drones collided, cruisers misfired, the fleet's formations fractured. Lyra's voice was a whisper of awe. I don't understand how one human can do all this. Jaren's eyes softened as he glanced at her. You will. Humans survive because we refuse to be predictable, because we use fear, chaos, and every scrap of the environment to our advantage, and because we fight even when the odds say we shouldn't. The lead cruiser fired a concentrated salvo. The shuttle skidded sideways, plasma beams grazing past, missing by meters. Jaren seized the moment, sending a chain of controlled explosions into the path of the pursuing fleet. The debris cloud expanded, hiding the shuttle and forcing the cruisers to slow, afraid of the sudden danger. Look at them, Jaren muttered. They adapt slowly. We adapt instantly. That's the difference. Lyra's eyes shimmered with a mix of fear, admiration, and newfound understanding. But I see now. Humans aren't just survivors, we're unstoppable. Jaren's grin widened. Exactly. The fleet's aggressive pursuit faltered. Ships had been damaged, drones destroyed, formations broken. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. One human, a Deathworlder, had outmaneuvered an entire Federation fleet. Reports traveled faster than light, sparking fear, curiosity, and respect. But Jaren wasn't done. He activated the shuttle's long-range comm. A single message, calm and deliberate, broadcast across the fleet. This human survives. And the next time you underestimate us, remember this moment. The silence that followed was deafening. Not a single cruiser moved. Not a single drone acted. The human's defiance was a statement, a warning, and a lesson. Lyra let out a long breath, her tail relaxing. You've done it. You survived, and taught them something they'll never forget. Jaren nodded. Humans survive because we endure. We adapt, we fight, and we refuse to be predicted. That's the legacy of a Deathworlder. One spark can change a galaxy, if you're willing to survive long enough to see it. For the first time in hours, the void felt calm. Stars glittered like silent witnesses. The Federation fleet retreated, broken, cautious, unsure. And the galaxy had learned a simple, terrifying truth. Underestimate a human, and you invite your own failure. Lyra turned to him, her violet fur still shimmering in the dim light of the shuttle. Jaren, what happens now? He smiled, a mixture of fatigue and triumph. Now. We survive, now. Humanity's spirit shows the galaxy what it means to endure. And someday, maybe they'll finally understand why humans are feared, respected, and unstoppable. As the shuttle drifted toward the uncharted void, stars stretching into light, Lyra realized that she had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just survival, but the essence of human courage. Against overwhelming odds, against fear, against logic, one human had changed the rules of the game, and somewhere, far across the galaxy, the whispers of the human who had survived a bar fight, an entire station and a fleet of warships, would echo for centuries. Jaren Thorne leaned back, eyes scanning the endless black. The galaxy was vast, the odds relentless, but as long as humans endured, it would never conquer them. And for the first time, Lyra understood completely. Survival wasn't about strength. It wasn't about weapons. It was about heart, instinct, and the unbreakable spirit of a Deathworlder. The void was silent. But humanity's legacy had just begun. The void was a deadly stage, and Jaren Thorne moved like a predator in its endless black. Federation warships flanked them from every side, a metallic halo designed to crush any chance of escape. Lyra gripped her seat, her violet fur bristling in zero gravity, her eyes wide with disbelief and awe. They've trapped us, she whispered. Not trapped, Jaren corrected, voice calm and even, almost soothing. They've given us options, if we're smart enough to see them. Lyra's ears flattened. Options? How? Every formation has a flaw, he said, eyes scanning the swirling fleet. Every rule they follow is predictable. We survive by finding the gaps, the mistakes, the pauses. The first salvo erupted from the lead cruiser. Plasma beams streaked across the void, aiming to slice their shuttle apart. Jaren twisted, letting the hull scrape against a nearby asteroid. Sparks flying, systems flickering. "Did you plan that?" Lyra shouted, clinging to the console. "No," Jaren admitted. "We're improvising. Humans survive by reacting faster than fear can control them." The fleet adjusted instantly, recalculating trajectories, forming tighter grids. Drones swarmed, trying to box them in. Lyra's gaze followed the chaos, every second stretching her nerves to breaking point. You're incredible," she whispered, voice trembling. "No species could what?" Jaren asked, glancing at her. "Predict humanity. Anticipate us. Every species thinks in rules, patterns, logic. We thrive in the breaks." Suddenly, a massive cruiser dropped ahead, attempting to cut off their path entirely. Jaren's grin widened. Time for lesson 2. He flipped the shuttle into a sharp spin, deploying a cloud of debris from the asteroid belt. Plasma beams collided with jagged rocks, exploding into fragments that blinded sensors. Federation targeting systems misfired. Drones collided with one another. Chaos spread through the ranks like wildfire. Lyra gasped, clutching her arm. "You're turning their strength against them." "Exactly," Jaren said. "Humans survive by using the environment, using the enemy, turning fear into advantage." The fleet, now furious, tried a coordinated trap, a deadly pincer movement. But Jaren's instincts were faster. He looped the shuttle through a narrow asteroid tunnel, weaving with impossible precision. 2 drones collided in a spectacular explosion, the shockwave shaking the shuttle. Lyra's fear turned to exhilaration. I've never seen anything like this." Jaren's voice was calm, measured, but a fire burned in his eyes. "This is what humans are. We fight when it's impossible. We survive when logic says we shouldn't. That terrifies the Federation." Suddenly, a massive energy net fired from the cruiser, expanding rapidly. Lyra froze. "We're caught." "Not yet," Jaren replied. He looped the shuttle sideways, using a small asteroid as a pivot. The net expanded, engulfing nothing but empty space. Sparks rained across the void. Lyra's jaw dropped. How do you do this?" "Instinct, observation, and refusing to be predictable," Jaren said. "Humans live for this. We adapt, we survive, we turn fear into opportunity. That's why we terrify them." But Jaren knew the danger was only growing. The Federation wasn't just a collection of ships. They were a network of intelligence, experience, and brutal coordination. They would adapt. They would learn, and humans would be ready. Lyra, still wide-eyed, asked quietly, "Do you ever get scared?" Jaren glanced at her, expression softening for the briefest moment. "Of course. Fear is a tool. It sharpens your senses, makes your choices faster, makes survival possible. But you don't let it control you. That's the difference." The fleet began to close in again, warships moving like predators in a synchronized ballet, expecting predictable behavior. Jaren's grin widened. "Let's give them a lesson in unpredictability." He looped the shuttle behind an asteroid field, disappearing from sensors. The fleet's calculated assault faltered, officers shouting commands that went unheeded as Jaren used every scrap of debris, every gravitational shift, to stay one step ahead. In the heart of the void, Lyra finally understood. Humans were fragile, yes, small, seemingly weak, but in spirit and instinct and will, they were unstoppable. They were Deathworlders, survivors born of harsh realities, and one human, one tavern fighter from a distant star, was teaching the Federation exactly why. Jaren Thorne's shuttle skimmed the surface of a massive, jagged asteroid, sensors blinking red from incoming fire. The Federation fleet had not relented. If anything, they had grown more ruthless. Every cruiser, every drone, every energy weapon was converging, cutting off escape routes, calculating his every move, or trying to. Lyra's violet fur bristled as she gripped the console. They're relentless. How can you keep moving?" Jaren's hands flew over the controls, eyes flicking between data streams and the void outside. "Because humans think differently. Other species rely on order, formation, predictability. Humans survive by exploiting the cracks in those expectations. That's why we terrify the Federation." A warning ping shrieked. A massive cruiser was dropping a gravity well directly in their path, designed to crush their shuttle into the asteroid belt. Lyra froze. We can't dodge that." Jaren's grin was calm, almost maddening in its serenity. "We don't dodge. We use it." He twisted the shuttle toward the edge of the gravity well, letting it pull him toward the massive mass. Systems groaned, alarms screamed, and Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief. You're going straight into it? Exactly. Jaren twisted again mid-pull, using the artificial gravity to sling the shuttle around the asteroid like a pendulum. The Federation's targeting arrays couldn't track him. Drones collided in the turbulence. Energy beams fizzled into empty space. Lyra's mouth fell open. That was insane. Instinct, Jaren said calmly. Humans survive by taking risks others can't calculate, by doing the impossible. But even humans have limits. The shuttle shuddered violently as minor hull breaches appeared. Sparks arced across the cabin. Lyra yelped as panels rattled. We're damaged, she said, fear creeping into her voice. Good, Jaren replied, eyes still scanning the fleet. Damage keeps them thinking I'm vulnerable. And humans survive not because we're invincible, but because we make the enemy underestimate us. A sudden ping signaled something worse. A Federation cruiser had launched a boarding pod. Not just to destroy the shuttle, but to capture. Lyra's tail lashed anxiously. But they want us alive. Jaren nodded. And that's when the real game begins. Humans don't just survive, they fight psychologically. Fear is a weapon, hope is armor, and ingenuity is the blade. The boarding pod closed in. Lights shimmered across its hull. A pulse cannon charged, aimed at the shuttle's cockpit. Lyra's breathing quickened. Ready? Jaren asked softly. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Yes, the pod rammed the shuttle's hull. Sparks flew. The cabin shuddered. Lyra screamed. Jaren yanked the controls, spinning the shuttle at an impossible angle. The pod clipped the asteroid and exploded, sending debris spiraling. He didn't pause. He dove through a narrow crevice, scraping the hull but avoiding destruction. Humans, Lyra whispered, voice trembling with awe. You survive everything. Jaren's eyes softened slightly, showing not arrogance but clarity. Not everything, but humans survive more than anyone expects, and when others think it's over, we start to win. A deep silence settled over the shuttle. The fleet hesitated. The one human had survived impossible maneuvers, predicted and countered their gambit, and now they were forced to adapt, to make mistakes. Lyra's gaze shifted. Do you ever wonder if it's too much? If you'll fail? Jaren looked at her, eyes steady, voice calm. Of course. Fear is part of survival, but humans survive because we don't let it control us, we use it. Every risk, every failure, every wound, it teaches us how to live when logic says we shouldn't. That's the difference. Beyond the shuttle's hull, the Federation fleet regrouped, wary, shaken. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. One human, a Deathworlder, had not only survived but outwitted the combined forces of a powerful alien coalition. And somewhere deep inside the shuttle, in the heart of one small human, a thought burned brighter than lasers and plasma. This is far from over, Jaren muttered. But they'll remember today. They'll remember what humans can do, and that will change everything. In that moment, the human, Lyra, and the vast indifferent void seemed to hold their breath. The Federation, vast and calculating, had met a force it could not predict. One small species, one defiant human, was teaching the galaxy that survival was not about power. It was about spirit, courage, and the refusal to die quietly. The hunt was far from finished, but the first victory had already been claimed. Jaren Thorne didn't wait for the station doors to open. He leapt through the observation deck's reinforced window, twisting mid-air, the thin suit around him barely shielding him from the vacuum of space. Behind him, Lyra followed, her violet, fur bristling in zero gravity, eyes wide with terror and awe. Below, the station spun slowly, bulkheads smoking, lights flickering, alarms echoing like a distant storm. The human's landing was precise, controlled, Earth-born muscle memory navigating a Deathworlders challenge. Lyra hit the deck moments later, gasping, barely avoiding a floating shard of metal. Why, she wheezed, why don't you die? Jaren landed, crouching low, scanning the expanse. Because we adapt, we survive, and because we don't wait for the world to decide our fate. Behind them, the station's alarms intensified as automated defense drones deployed. Metallic arms extended, energy blasters aimed at the pair. Federation warships above formed a deadly halo, their weapon systems primed to incinerate. Jaren didn't flinch. He grabbed a loose maintenance drone floating nearby and shoved it into the path of another, sending sparks and circuitry scattering. Improvisation, he muttered. Humans specialize in it. Lyra watched, her fear mingled with fascination. We were taught humans were fragile, primitive. How are you still alive? Because you've never fought a species that can turn desperation into strategy. He rolled past another drone, kicking a loose panel that struck one like a hammer. Everything you think you know about survival doesn't apply to humans. We fight, we fall, we get up, and we always find a way. Above them, the first shots fired. Energy beams tore through the station's hull, sending chunks of debris into the void. Jaren didn't hesitate. He dove toward a docking bay, Lyra scrambling behind him. The human's speed and reflexes in zero-G matched no alien protocol. Even trained Federation soldiers could barely follow his movement. "Stop him," barked a Vrithian captain from the warship's comms. "Contain, immobilize, or destroy." Jaren grinned, ducking under a floating crate. "Destroy? You'll need more than protocol and armor. Humans don't quit." They reached the docking bay. A small escape shuttle, scratched and battle-worn, waited. Jaren piloted it with precision, the console lights reflecting in his determined eyes. Lyra hesitated. "You're leaving the station?" she asked. "Survival isn't about staying in one place," Jaren said. "It's about knowing when to fight and when to run. You'll see that soon." The shuttle blasted off, weaving through debris as Federation fire streaked past. Each maneuver was calculated, instinctive, human intuition outpacing alien machinery. Lyra clung to the seat, voice trembling. I can't believe it. One human, and the entire station." "Lesson number 1, Jaren said, voice calm as stars streaked by. "Underestimate humans, and you pay the price. That's why they fear us, yet can't control us." The shuttle's sensors lit up, Federation ships in pursuit, formation tight, weapons armed. Lyra swallowed hard. "We're outmatched." "Not if you fight smart." Jaren's hand hovered over the console, eyes calculating, muscles tense. They count on numbers, rules, fear. Humans count on resolve, ingenuity, and a refusal to die quietly. Watch closely. He flipped the shuttle into a spin, using gravitational debris from a nearby asteroid cluster to mask their exit. Federation targeting systems struggled to compensate. Beams missed. Lasers scorched empty void. Lyra's jaw dropped. They can't hit us." "Exactly," Jaren replied. "Humans thrive in chaos. Our world trained us for it." A sudden alarm blared. The Federation wasn't just chasing. They were adapting. A large cruiser, bristling with experimental weaponry, cut into their path, attempting to box them in. Jaren's grin widened. Now it gets interesting. He looped the shuttle around the cruiser, exploiting blind spots in alien targeting protocols. Lyra gasped, awe replacing fear. "I don't understand. Every move you make, every risk has purpose," Jaren said. "Humans fight not because we are strong, but because we refuse to be predictable. That's what terrifies the Federation. That's why we survive." The cruiser fired a concentrated plasma salvo. Jaren yanked the shuttle into a sudden dive behind an asteroid, the blasts scorching the space behind them. Lyra felt the shuttle vibrate violently, yet Jaren's calm grip never wavered. And in that moment, Lyra understood. Survival wasn't about being the biggest, the strongest, or the fastest. It was about heart, instinct, and an unbreakable will. Jaren looked back at her, eyes glowing with determination. This fight, it's only just begun. Far above, the Federation fleet adjusted, preparing to trap them. But already whispers were spreading among the alien officers. One human, one Deathworlder, had survived where none should. One human had proven that the Federation could be challenged. And the universe, vast and indifferent, was about to take notice. The void around them was silent except for the hum of the shuttle's engines and Lyra's uneven breathing. Stars stretched into streaks as the shuttle maneuvered through the asteroid field, Jaren's hands steady on the controls. Yet every pulse on the sensor reminded them. They were being hunted. Above, the Federation fleet coordinated with ruthless precision. Warships flanked them, drones swarmed, and communications relayed orders like an unyielding chorus. Do not allow the human to escape. Lyra's violet fur bristled in zero gravity. Jaren, they're everywhere. How can you even think? Don't think, he interrupted, voice calm, almost soothing. React, adapt, survive. That's what humans do. That's why they fear us. A warning signal lit the shuttle console. A massive cruiser had cut into their path, blocking escape. Its hull was bristling with experimental weaponry. Lyra swallowed hard, her eyes wide. They'll trap us, she whispered. Maybe, Jaren replied, eyes scanning the asteroid cluster. But they haven't accounted for us yet. Not fully. With a sudden twist, Jaren sent the shuttle spiraling into the asteroid belt. Massive rocks tumbled around them, and the cruiser's targeting system scrambled. Lasers grazed stone, detonations sending shards into the void. Lyra gripped the shuttle seat, awe and fear mingling. You're insane, she whispered. Insanity is a tool, Jaren said. Humans call it instinct. The first Federation drones attempted interception, but Jaren's maneuvers were too unpredictable. He pivoted the shuttle over a spinning asteroid, using its rotation to hurl two drones into each other. Sparks flew, alarms shrieked, and Lyra gasped. You planned that? She asked. No, Jaren admitted with a grin. But humans know how to turn chaos into advantage. Suddenly, a massive energy net enveloped the shuttle. The cruiser had fired a containment trap, a device designed to crush any ship caught within. Lyra's eyes widened in panic. Brace yourself, Jaren shouted, flipping the shuttle at the last second. The net slammed into empty space, missing them by mere meters. Why? Why can't they hit you? Lyra demanded, voice trembling. Jaren's grin was calm, unshakable. Because they rely on rules. We don't play by rules. Humans survive where others fail, not by strength but by refusing to be predictable. The cruiser adjusted, opening its main weapon bay. Beams of concentrated plasma shot toward the shuttle. Jaren twisted, dodging with instinctive precision, letting Lyra feel the raw speed and danger of the maneuver. You're terrifying, she said, awestruck. Not terrifying, he said calmly, eyes fixed on the approaching ships. Human, that's what terrifies them. The shuttle dove deeper into the asteroid belt, weaving through the rocks like a living thing. Federation drones crashed into rocks, weapons misfired, and the cruiser's coordinated assault faltered against the unpredictability of one human. But not all humans are invincible. An explosion rocked the shuttle as a stray plasma bolt grazed the hull. Sparks flew across the cabin, systems flickered, and Lyra was thrown against a console. Pain seared through her arm. Jaren's hands were steady, eyes scanning the readings. Hold on, he shouted. We're not done yet. Behind them, sensors indicated more ships were warping in, a full blockade forming. The Federation had mobilized nearly half the sector. Escape was becoming nearly impossible. Lyra, trembling, looked at him. We can't outrun all of them. Jaren's eyes softened slightly, just enough for her to see the human determination behind the chaos. We don't have to outrun them. We'll make them chase us into a mistake. Humans survive because we turn the impossible into opportunity. You'll see. Somewhere deep in the fleet, the metallic-skinned alien from the tavern observed, lips tight, eyes narrowed. Impossible, it whispered. And yet, the human survives. The chase continued, each second escalating, tension building. The Federation's firepower was overwhelming, but Jaren thrived in unpredictability. Lyra's fear was tempered by fascination, watching human ingenuity and raw courage in action. And in the cold void, far beyond the station, and its shattered halls, the first whispers of fear began to spread across the Federation. One human, unarmed in the eyes of protocol, had outmaneuvered fleets, drones, and elite officers. One human had shown that survival wasn't just about technology or strength. It was about heart, instinct, and the unyielding refusal to die quietly. Jaren glanced at Lyra. "Ready for the next lesson?" She nodded, eyes wide but resolved. "Yes." The void waited. The fleet closed in, and the hunt, terrifying and relentless, had only just begun.